be so much fun to talk about navigating change with goodwill and hope. And why I think that is so important is because I feel like when we fight the nature of life, we suffer. If we look at the nature of life, what's true about life? What's true about life since the beginning of time, and what will be true about life till the end of time is, at least I feel like it'll be true until the end of my time. I don't know what'll happen after, I drop the meat suit. But change is a constant. Uncertainty and change is a constant in life. It's a grand illusion that something is stagnant, in the sense of, not stagnant as in stale, but as fixed. Nothing in life is really fixed. It looks like it's fixed, but life is moving. Life is moving. Time is moving, if there's such a thing as time, but we won't go down that rabbit hole. but life is moving. So when I think about navigating change with hope and goodwill, it's like if we know that life is ever changing, and we can start to get that at a level even beyond our intellect. We can get something in our intellect, but it's like if you can kind of get it to your gut, get it to your knowing that the nature of life is constant change. It's like, okay, I don't have to fight that battle. But to let it really travel through your body, settle in, and look around you, and you'll see that in life we have the seasons change. Everything is moving. Everything is moving. Our heart is moving. Our blood is moving. Everything is moving. So since that's the nature of life, we can settle in that change is part of it. Another part, that change is not a problem. It's just a part of life. Our intellect tends to make it a problem, but it's just, in the big book of facts of life kind of thing. And also what's true about life in the biggest picture is that life at every single moment offers potential possibilities at every moment. Every moment is potential and possibility in place. And in that potential and possibility, that is a constant. We also maybe not know, but it's good to know that there's, in the potential and in the possibility, the opportunity is there to have a fresh experience. That's where you'll get a fresh experience, is in the present moment, where potential exists, where possibility exists, where wisdom exists. That's where freshness will come from. Not from yesterday, not from concerns for tomorrow, but right here, right now. So, okay. So it's like, okay, if I can, I love the idea that there's such a thing as a given in life, being the grabby, wanting something to hold on to kind of person. That seems to be a human frailty, wanting to grab something. It's like, okay, I can grab a hold of the fact that change is constant. Life is always moving. There's pure potential in every moment. In the moment, there's limitless possibility, and there's always an opportunity for a fresh experience. So that, in my little greedy hands, I can hold in, in the ethers of holding things in my hand, but I can pretty much rest in that. So if that's a given, I thought what would be so interesting, because we're on kind of a lockdown, we're on a lockdown with others, or we're on a lockdown all by ourselves. I thought it would be really a good topic to talk about would be moods. Because I think when we have less of our typical distractions. You know, we can run and get in the car. We can, you know, like we talked about last week, get to CVS and get some chocolate. Whatever it is, we tend to unconsciously do in reaction to our moods. And I say that because moods are a temporary state of being. And what's so interesting to know is that, like the weather patterns outside, our moods are exactly the same thing. Our moods are a temporary state of mind. But in times of change and in times of uncertainty, and we get so much bombardment with information, so much bombardment with the concerns of others, what seems to be everyone's concerns in the air, our moods, I think, will become more visible to us because we have less distraction from how we're feeling moment to moment. So what I thought would be great that really does promote goodwill is that if we become more aware of the fluctuations of our mood, and we gain some understanding that I don't have to take them seriously because they're moving too, then if we're in relationship with ourselves on lockdown or we're in relationship with others, we can kind of get reflective in when these moods hit and, you know, kind of take the observer position and just watch them. Watch them. Not watch them and need to do anything with them. I like pointing to the fact that moods are fluctuating and temporary. And I kind of occurred to me, it's like, okay, so what mood were you in Sunday at 3 o'clock? And where is it? You know, so it's like, I don't know what my mood was. I can take a guess, but it's not still in the room with me. So I thought that, like that thing about we all of our bells and whistles tend to go off when we're not in a mood that we're in agreement with. And we got to go back to our earlier conversation about, ooh, that could go into the problem category. All of a sudden becomes a problem instead of a mood. And it's a mood, again, it's just a fluctuation like the weather, but it's happening inside us. And some moods we like, some moods we agree with, some moods we'd rather not have. And especially if we're in space with others or we're in working from home and we take our mood seriously, if we take our mood seriously, either the person we're sharing the house with is a you know what, or the person I have to get on the phone with or in this meeting with is a you know what. Depending on where you are on that mood. And what's so fascinating, if you learn to not take those moods so seriously or give them so much respect, you'll notice that when you're in a low mood, somebody can call or be in the room with you and you have a certain narrative going on. When your mood shifts, you're welcoming that phone call. You're looking forward to that interaction. You're finding the person in the room with you just fascinating. You have so much curiosity. So then we think, as human beings, I need to do something to stay up here because I like this feeling. You know, I need to do something or I'm not doing it right, or I would feel on a high more than I'm feeling on a high. It's like, that's not true. That's not true. There's nothing. I mean, well, you know, I would say that if you look at things where people tend to grab something from the outside world to elevate their mood, you know, that's very common in our culture, but it's not impacting the system on the inside. The system fluctuate on its own. You don't have to do anything to level out. Your moods will fluctuate on your own, and they're always going to fluctuate. So if we're in an understanding that these moods are fluctuate, it's just a fluctuating sense of being in a moment, in the moment. I don't need the bells and whistles, kind of like those smoke detectors that go off, you know. It's like it's just a mood. It's not the fire alarm going off in the house and you need to do anything. And if we can get a little more comfortable with that discomfort, just get back into your life, do the next thing that's in front of you to do, you're gonna carry more goodwill. You're gonna carry a sense of hopefulness about life in general, because you know our baseline of being is hopeful, harmonious, peaceful. That's who we are, regardless of this fluctuation. That's the truth of who we are. At the core of our being is harmonious and peaceful. So I say that because it feels better. It feels better in just from my experience of life, when I don't get as yanked up by what's going on in my head. Because it can beat you on the rocks. It can totally beat you on the rocks. But you'll always have a fluctuation. You're not doing anything wrong because you don't stay kumbaya. You don't stay, no human being is going to stay high all the time or stay low all the time. You fluctuate. You fluctuate. And what's funding this inside of all of us is our natural innate resiliency. The resiliency that heals our body, puts our skin back together. Gosh, gives us an opportunity to do things we never knew we could do. And y'all all had experiences in your life where you found yourself in a situation where you never thought you'd be, but somehow you sit here today and you navigated it. So that is where I'm pointing to, at that level of resilience. That depth is in there, but we don't see it. We don't respect it. We don't really know that we can count on it. But hopefully in these conversations of gaining more about how we as human beings operate, we get a chance to see those. So I'd love to open the floor now if you have a question or anything or any kind of comment about this, just to see what comes to mind for you. And if you want to raise your hand, great. You can just raise it because I can see you all. Trudy.
Unmute us.
Okay.
I'm really glad you're addressing this, because I think that part of what we are called upon to do right now is to really be in our truth and really be with what is fully. And it, especially because of the longevity of this, it's not like we are dipping our toe in the water. We really are truly accepting that we're living in uncertainty right now. And we don't know how long this may last. So what I'm finding, what fuels me, is staying in the moment as much as I possibly can and asking, what's the next action to take right now? And this is one. And then the other one is, I noticed this huge difference in our house where anything would agitate me, like Martin just used the microwave a minute ago, and I'm sitting here going, how much longer, how much longer, how much longer? You know, and I can't help myself. It's just irritating. I have your hearing aids in and everything's louder to me. You know,
I put her in a mood.
He says, I'm putting you in a mood, and I'm thinking, no, I'm just trying to tolerate you. So there's the seriousness of where it goes. But when we have a mantra from our spiritual tradition that plays, that you can put different versions of it on. And in our living room right now, which is the center of our house, we put an altar on our coffee table that has, I kind of consider it the seat of power of the house right now. And when I really want to be quiet, I sit on that sofa right in front of it. And then the background, we play the mantra. Now, I notice that on days when I don't do that, like right now, I haven't turned it on yet for the day, I haven't even thought about it, I wouldn't have heard that microwave like that. It shifts it. It's like I got somewhere else to go with my thoughts and I got somewhere else to take it. If I really need to not make a big deal out of that, I go sit in the living room for just a little bit and breathe into that meditative energy of this room. So that's just one way to work with it. And if I will add something to the dimension of that, I still have a therapy appointment that I keep with my therapist that I've been seeing for years. And yesterday we talked about how we get to enoughness about everything, how we stay in everything is enough. So for me, the life just went, boom, you get to be home now. Look at all the things you've been wanting to do. And then feel like they're spilled out everywhere. Like I just can't get to everything fast enough. Martin calls me walking around with my hair on fire. Which I remind him he does that too. But I really do get it, that I'm just like, there's this urgency, like, God, I got to get this shit done. And honestly, there'd never be enough time for me to get it all done for the how behind I've gotten in life. But
well, I don't know you're behind, Cherie. I'm just saying the movement of life. If our mind makes if our mind, like our state of being says I'm behind, it's like, no, this is where I am doing with what I'm doing. Because since life is moving, like we're talking about, there's always going to be more yummy things we want to play with if we're going to engage in life.
And that's the other thing, is to keep ourselves so vibrantly alive during this time. And I feel that vibrancy. I feel the vibrancy. I feel the enthusiasm. I'm excited about what I can accomplish now that so much distractions of life have been eliminated. We for years have been wanting to make food simple. Guess what? It's simple right now.
That's what I'm saying. There's lots of opportunity right now, you know?
I talk about enough. I've got enough food. I've got enough time. We've got more enoughness than we've ever had. Financial, for a lot of people, might be really getting into that part. And boy, I just can't feel enough for what other people go through. So
something you said too that I think is such a teaching point. It's like you mentioned that in any moment, and this is all human beings, this isn't even a Trudeism, but to use your example, it's like you're here, you hear Martin doing something, your attention goes to Martin, your reaction is agitation. And then you mentioned, well, if I had my mantra going, I can put my attention on that and Martin didn't bug me so bad. But the base fact of human beings is what we put our attention on is where reaction happens.
Yeah, and where it grows. I mean, we feed it, and then it grows, and it, like you said, becomes a problem. I love that. All of a sudden, it shifts over to problem. Yeah.
But we can even have a different experience with all the thinking that comes in our head about our moods, all the array of thoughts that are just running through our mind at any time. We can have a different relationship with that, to where I don't even let my mind decide it has to have something like a pacifier. You know, yes. It's like I don't have to give it a pacifier. It can just still go. You know, right. and it's I just think that's kind of interesting, that the opportunity to not be as dominated by what comes in my head, and trying to, kind of even playing with, well, what's left now I don't have to ask that question because that just generates thinking for me. It's like, but if I just let all this go by, then it's a very different experience in the moment. And there's no perfection. It's just like when I can, and other times I take lots of walks,
Right. Well, and then there's allowing ourselves to be the witness and the watcher. And then you can ask yourself, who's doing the watching? Who's doing the witnessing? But there's allowing ourselves to shift out of reality.
In all innocence, unless you're, look at Paisley. In all of our innocence, I didn't know I could be the witness until I saw I could.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this is to be experienced for sure. It's not a concept, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Thank you. Anybody else have a comment or something? I'd love to hear.
I'll throw out a question if you don't mind.
Great, Martin, go for it.
Can we put someone else in a mood, or is that a choice we make?
I'll put it to you like it's like no one can make me like sauerkraut.
That's good.
No offense to the sauerkraut people, but no one has the power to put me in a mood. No one has the power to put you in a mood. No one. Now, even if they know where the bat phone is and the big red button is, like for people we have lots of history for, and we know just what buttons to push, and we're looking at, and we're getting to be a street fighter, we're feeling a little insecure. But it's still up for grabs what that person will feel, and how much you want to buy into what you're making about what that person is doing or saying.
Mm-hmm.
How
much you want to buy into it.
How much you want to buy into what your mind's making up about what that person's doing and what that person's doing to you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And is the sound personal?
It's all personal.
When
we get a reaction to something, it's all personal, whether we really, whatever we are reacted to, somebody calls, somebody doesn't call, somebody uses a word like evidently, evidently always sounds like arrogance to me. Other people just hear it as a word, So does that answer your question, Martin?
Yeah, I just thought it might be an interesting thing to throw out for discussion, but it definitely answers my question.
I think it's a great question to ask, because so often we think my well-being is attached to something outside of me, and it's like no. Sure feels like it though when our crosshairs go in front of the one that's standing in front of us.
Yep.
And it shows up when they're in the room. It's got to be them. It's like, yeah. So it's like if we really knew that, to your point, if we really knew that my state of being is fluctuating inside me, independent of what's going on around me, I think we have more goodwill for the people around us, because we take responsibility for what's on our side of the line. And it cultivates goodwill with another person because we're not blaming them for how I'm feeling, and all transparency. I promise you, if something goes wrong around my house, I blame my husband immediately. The guy hadn't even been there in 3 days or something, but it's fascinating to me where my mind goes. And then I snap and go, oh, I'm the one that put that there. Oh, but my mind is so quick to blame him,
If you lost something, he must have took it.
He did. He moved it. No doubt he moved it, Leave my stuff alone, You can just see where the mind goes. It's like it's so innocent that the mind just, it's something. Our mind just makes up. It's something outside of me. And don't want to do that, but I did.
I don't even live with anybody, and I'm sure someone came in my house and took it.
That's great, Leslie.
That's my first thought.
That is great, Leslie. That is great. And they better put it back.
We have this expression, we go, she took it. When we just
Exactly.
he took it. It's this joke that we make a lot. That invisible she and he.
It makes common sense to me that if blame kind of moves out and our naturalness moves in, we're going to have more goodwill toward the people we're interacting with.
Yeah. Naturalness.
It just makes space for our naturalness to be more present, not our made upness, Anybody else have a question, comment, curiosity?
I think for me, I've just become more observant. I've been walking a lot and exploring different streets and different parts of my street, to the point where I've seen 2 little pygmy pigs and a turkey and a hawk, and that's been kind of interesting. So I view the quiet of the city, because the noise level is significantly down from where we live, to sort of an extended meditation. And it's allowed me to kind of go deeper during this time.
That's beautiful.
And it's also gotten me back to doing some things I haven't done for a while, like reading poetry, writing letters, and things like that, sort of, that's a nice thing to do when I have time and I'm not distracted.
That's a great idea, Barb. I think that's like Trudy's, it's just a great idea to kind of share what's coming to mind that's fresh, that other stuff has occupied that space.
And what occurred to me this morning as I was walking, and for those of you who've been in our neighborhood, because I live close to Cherie, there's so many small stores and businesses, and how everything is so interconnected. That thought just really came up high today about, the impact of this on so many different aspects of living. Not just the inconvenience for some of us who are home and maybe retired, but for people who are, maybe just opened up a restaurant or opened up a store and everything came to a screeching halt. Through no fault of their own. And so that's been an interesting observation for me.
That's great, Barb. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah.
I'm going to have to cut out because they're getting ready to do a seminar on Texas teacher pensions. So I'm going to have to cut out here in a second. But one, I want to say thank you, Cherie, for hosting this. The other thing is, man, it's so great to see all of your faces, so this is a real treat. And I just wanted to share one thing that came out of this. It's kind of personal, but it's not personal with me. My nephew, he's been off for 2 weeks because he's a bartender. And so he's been off for 2 weeks. And my nephew has this gift and talent for filming and writing stories and all this other stuff. And what was really cool, I talked to him, I checked in on him the other day, and we haven't had much communication since November, and that's a whole different story. It has nothing to do with me. It's a family dynamic that's going on. But anyway, what I wanted to say is the week, he's just, well, this is going on week 2. He's been like real productive in doing things during the day because he hasn't been working until the wee hours of the morning. And this was so cool. It was like answer to prayer. You know, he told me, he goes, I want to go back into doing all his creative things. And he realized he had the time, you know, to actually realize that and stop. And so now he's not going to go back to doing the bartending. And he's going to pursue his, you know, his love and his interest, you know, so I thought that was a pretty cool thing to, you know, come out of all of this. And then I have one more personal thing to share, and then I'm going to have to leave you guys, and I hate that. But for me, like the last 4 years being retired, this not much has changed for me, except that I can't go to breakfast or lunch with my friends and go to concerts. And I'm okay with that right now. But what dawned on me, and you'd have to know my whole story, which I'm not going into, but what dawned on me the other day is I've grown into a person I like being around, and that was a major thing for me. So anyway, I just wanted to share that with you all. And I'm so happy to see you all. And Carrie, especially your lovely face. Oh my God, I miss you. Anyway, did you get my text?
No, I didn't.
Oh, okay. I sent you one to check on you. Oh, well.
I did change my phone number, so I'll send out my new phone number again.
Okay. All right. Thank you all for letting me do that personal. You guys, I'll see you hopefully soon in one of the painting classes or something. Okay. Bye.
And I think that, you know, we talked about last week, like change is such a fertile garden for opportunity to do things differently. And I think that's exactly what Phyllis is addressing. It's like just having to kind of be mandated with change. It enlists your innate creative process to kick in. And we all have a creative process that will kick in on our behalf. And the biggest challenge is just allow yourself to, you don't have to get comfortable, but you can also not be distracted by being uncomfortable. Because we're gonna always experience times of discomfort. But if you don't care if you're uncomfortable, you'll just go on with life. It's just not that big a deal. It's a temporary, again, life is moving, so it's a temporary state of being that, you know, I don't have to be distracted so much by what comes in my head. I don't have to be so distracted by how I feel. Do I feel like doing it? Do I not feel like doing it? That all just like, when you start to see that that's not giving you information about life, it's just a mental narrative and the fluctuating moods, that's all just part of that. It's not giving you life feedback at all. Let's see. So who else has a question on anything?
I just, there's some things that I've noticed just being at home. I've only been working from home for the past 3 days, I guess. So it hasn't been that long. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Okay. And so I have an almost 3-year-old who has a lot of mood fluctuations, as you call them. And I think because I've been so, you know, distracted with work and everything, and I don't have that distraction anymore, I can kind of watch her mood fluctuations. And I have really tried to get her to verbalize what she's feeling and what she can do to feel better. But in the back of my head, I'm also thinking that for some reason, I'm thinking that whatever mood she's in needs to be fixed, like, and I don't want to teach her that her mood that she's in is something that has to be fixed. I want to teach her to recognize her mood and, be in that feeling and know how to comfort herself. And somehow, as an adult, I think that we get in this place where we think that all of our mood fluctuations are negative, that we have to be stable-minded, but just watching her over the last 3 days, I can see that she just falls in and out of these fluctuations and moves on with her life, and doesn't remember them 5 minutes after they happened. So it was just an observation that I had without the distraction of work that I've had for the past 6 months, just being at home there with her.
I love what you're saying. And Paisley is being so absolutely natural. It's like, wait a minute. The concept that she needs to do something to get in a better mood is on your side of the line, not hers. She's just living her life.
Yep.
I mean, that's the genius of watching a 3-year-old. It's like we get to see how they naturally operate. If you give them a chance to see how they naturally operate, and then we get a chance to notice, what am I overlaying on that okayness? I'm not comfortable with them being in a bad mood, so I think I got to do something to make them feel better. It's like, no.
Yeah.
I noticed that, like with like if you had siblings, and you get in a fight with your siblings and you beat each other to death, you hate each other. And then 15 minutes later, you're playing with them back to building the fort, or whatever it is you're doing. And it's, if you're watching little kids, you're like, I thought you were mad at your brother. It's like, what? Like, get over yourself, They don't say get over yourself, but they're not holding on to it. We hold on to it, but I love what you're pointing to, Cherie, because that's in all of us, that if we don't have to do anything with these moods, we can just be in it, and it's gonna move. It's gonna move, but we get so reactive to our temporary state of being that we go into action on it, and we're interfering with our natural resilience at that point.
And I also notice, at least for me, when I notice myself in a bad mood and I've kind of put that bad mood on someone else, that I feel the need to apologize for it, or I don't know. And I feel like it's almost unnecessary to apologize, because it is just a mood and it will pass, and everybody goes through these mood fluctuations. It's not like I've done something really mean to someone because of my mood. It's just that I'm apologizing for not having a stable mood, I guess.
Yes, that's another great point. It's like, expecting us not to have fluctuation in mood. But I think it's always kind of a deposit in the goodwill department to own it, going, you know what, I was in a cruddy mood and I threw up all over you, so I apologize. And all those deposits in the goodwill account, your relationships will operate at a higher level because you have goodwill in the tank, not contempt, not resentment, or not whatever you might check what kind of deposits you've been making in that account toward that person. but if you're making goodwill deposit, when I was in a bad mood, I took it out on you. I apologize for doing it, but you have no character faults. It's just being human, and I got all caught up in my humanness.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thinking we have to operate at a higher standard above our operating system. Not helpful. Nancy, did you have your hand up?
Me, Nancy?
Oh, Nancy Taylor. Sorry.
I really was touching my face, which is against the law right now, but I did have a question. So I have a couple of people in my intimate life right now who are living in a constant state of fear about our current situation.
Mm-hmm.
And what would you suggest to help mitigate that? Or would you?
Tell me what you're noticing about them and what you're noticing about you in these interactions.
They just, both of them just get so ramped up about all the press and all the fear. And I'm not fearful. And I'd like something that I could say to just help dissipate it a little for them. Otherwise, I feel like I'm having to avoid talking to them.
Oh, that's a real good point. That's a real good point. So if you knew you weren't broken and you knew they weren't broken and you didn't have to do anything for them to feel better, would that feel like it would be easier to be in those interactions?
I don't feel like I have to do anything to make them feel better. I have a compassion to give them something that will help ease their feeling of fear. I mean, they're just, it's so over the top almost.
I think what you just said is, if you're holding compassion for that person,
mm-hmm.
but you're off the hook from making it better for that person,
right?
You can share whatever comes to mind and how you're feeling from a place of compassion. That's
mm-hmm.
real.
They don't want to hear it. Neither of them want to hear it. So it's like I'm like, okay, well, I'm just limiting how I can talk to them right now.
Yeah,
which is kind of sad because they're part of my circle.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. But even if I'll even say, like in these situations, if we're going to play with change and being freer minded around what's happening,
mm-hmm.
and I don't have to have an edict or an agenda for dealing with people. It's like, wait a minute, what if I could just be freer minded, and if I feel like taking the call, I'll take the call. If I don't feel like taking the call, I won't take the call. But to let yourself off the hook of thinking you have to decide now how you're going to interact with somebody at a future date. What does that feel like?
I don't know. I have to think about it for a minute.
I'm thinking that there's a part of us that wants to help, or just hates to witness suffering. But we can just hold the space for them. Because if you know they have this, they're connected to the same source of wisdom as you are. If they want help, by all means, you can extend ask them if they'd like to have a conversation about why you're not bothered, or even ask a conversation about something. But I heard it the other day. Somebody even asked permission. They said, "Well, can I share something with you?" And they said, "Yeah, go ahead." And they started to share, and they said, "I don't want to hear that." So I was like, "Okay."
Yeah.
That's all you can do, That's all you can do.
Well, I said to one of the people, I said, we're going to get through this whether you're fearful or not.
Absolutely.
And then she stopped talking to me. So it's kind of like, okay, well, I'll keep it to myself. I'll keep her in my prayers, but I'll keep my, comments.
Yeah. Do what makes sense to you. Truly do what makes sense to you, because if you're resting in compassion, something fresh has the opportunity to come along. Not in judgment. We don't sit in judgment, but we sit in compassion. something fresh could come, because that's part of that movement of life. Something fresh can come. Thank you for asking that question. Bobby, I think you had one. Did you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I was, that made me think. I've been thinking about, well, this might be a bad thing to bring up, but I whenever I see our president talking about whatever, anything, I immediately am looking for what's wrong with it. And so I got a lot invested in him continuing to be who I think he is, which I think is really interesting. And then I think about, in relation to what you were talking about, Nancy, I think about my mother. I remember talking to her on the phone one time, and she was just in a state. And I just felt so, whatever. Anyway, so I wound up getting in my car, driving to her house. And when I got to her house, I don't remember if somebody had come by or if she was on the phone or something. But I got to her house, and she was like in this wonderful mood, And I thought, well, wait a minute. I thought you were, But anyway, so, just because those people are talking, maybe you pegged them. I don't even want to go there. But, they may not be fearful all the time, They may be watching Jim Gaffigan some of the time.
That's a great point, Bobby. It's like that moment where you picked up the phone and you got in the crosshairs of their fearfulness,
Yes.
But that's not a permanent state of being either, Like Bobby said, if Publishers Clearinghouse knocks on the door and here's you another 7 million, they'd be like, woohoo, problem, So
Yeah.
caught them at that moment of when the crosshairs got them, and even let it off your mind. Their low mood. I think that's a real good point too, is don't let somebody else's low mood live in your head long after you're out of conversation with them. Yeah. Marcia. Thank you, Bobby.
Hi, Cherie. Hi, everybody.
Marcia.
Hey, Marcia.
Oh, let me lower my hand. I love these little goofy icon things you can do. I didn't have much to share. I just wanted to chime in. I live by myself. I've lived by myself my entire adult life. No children, no pets, no boyfriend. Worked 60 hours a week, was just sent home. I'm an hourly worker. I have no income. This period has been incredible for me. I mean, I belong to this Zen writing class, and we write. And anyway, I'm sorry. I'm just like not making any sense. I do a lot of AA meetings this way too, so I'm used to this format. But this period has been really rich for me. My parents are elderly. They live in Houston. They have underlying conditions. They're not scared. They think this is really interesting. The people that are really freaking out in my life, I just don't give any airtime to. I mean, I listened to this boundary setting podcast from this lady in Houston for years. And it's like, she talks about this listing boundary where people should ask you if they can discuss things with you. It never occurred to me that I couldn't just call somebody and just vomit whatever I was feeling over the phone. We have a choice whether we want to listen to stuff. And I've set boundaries with my family over the past year. Like, this is not topics we can talk about anymore. I will not talk about my sex life with you. I will not talk about you can't tell me how ugly you are all the time because it upsets me to hear, just these. And because of that, I have very few people that I even talk to anymore. But that's okay. The one thing I was super busy. I worked all the time. I went to improv all the time. I went to movies all the time. I yacked with people. But now, and I was lonely. I always felt lonely. And now I've been in my house for 2 weeks and I don't feel lonely. And I started painting again. And just being I think my natural, and I've been sleeping like 12 hours a night, up from 6. It's just, I think my natural rhythm has come back. And the only thing I'm worried about is not being able to go to Taos. That's the only thing I'm worried about in the whole universe.
We're going to Taos.
unless they cancel it. Anyway, thank y'all for listening. I just wanted to get that off my chest. So thank you.
Beautiful. Thanks, Marsha.
I'm checking out. I'm looking. Oh, yeah, Barb.
I just have a comment about to Nancy Taylor. Is that I have one friend whose whole world rises and falls on anxiety. And I think she doesn't feel complete unless she has something to make her anxious about. And so there are times when I know she just needs to vent because she does live by herself and she's kind of isolated. And I know she needs to vent, but I have to kind of rev up for that phone call. So if I'm at a place where I know I can't give attention to her, I don't answer the phone call. I save it for another time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I hate to see her suffer, but I can't change that about her. That is not something I can change.
Yeah.
So just to be a good listener is a gift I can offer. That's all I can offer.
Yeah. I could just add one point to that, is that I think whether we agree with people or not, and that we are very specific with our boundaries to choose when we're willing to listen, people just want to know they've been heard. And we can say that so simply. We hear you. We get it. This is tough for you. There's so many ways to affirm where they are. And one of the things I've been reminded is that when we all move into a time of survival, like most of us have never really ever had to do that in our lives. I mean, real survival. Our ancestors got really good at it. They went through so many big things in their lives. And now us. It's easy to see that our default will engage, whatever our default is. So if it's to be a ranter and I just need to rant and be angry, that's that person's default. So when we come from witnessing, we can watch and we can go, whoa, isn't that intriguing that that's the way they're defaulting right now, and mine looks different. But at the same time, everybody wants to know that nobody's pushing against them. It's a different kind of energy to disengage than it is to go, whoa, I don't want to hear you. It's a subtle shift. It's to simply say, I hear you. I can't really understand it, but I hear you. And sooner or later, they'll find somebody else that resonates and they'll talk to them, hopefully.
Thank you, Trudy. So I want to get the information from Trudy, and I want to interject that it occurred to me next week I want to do this again. I'm just doing it until it's
so great, Cherie.
And next week's topic just feels like the topic is loving life just as it is. And I love your creature, Marsha. So next Friday we're going to meet the same time. I'll send out a little thing with the Zoom meeting room number on it, and I would want to just tell you thank you so much for joining and how much I appreciate getting to see you guys on Fridays. It's so wonderful to see you guys, and it's just fun. I mean, it's just pure fun.
Cherie, I have something before we go.
Great, Gina. Good to see you.
I came in late because I was busy being OCD with the Q-tips detailing my truck, so I was a little late getting here. It's coming back. I have noticed, one thing I've noticed, and y'all probably already talked about it, but at first, since I do have an immune system that's compromised, I was very scared about going here, so I ran out and, tried to get food and, my medication and all that kind of stuff and get that out of the way. But I was just glued to the TV, and all these different sources of information, and became kind of getting a little anxiety about it. And even like Facebook, and, my husband's on Facebook a lot, and, you read all this different stuff. So, I've started limiting that to maybe once or twice a day and just choosing which sources and just pick one and not being overstimulated. So I don't have as much anxiety about it. And plus, I'm at the house. Like, what could happen? I'm at the house. So just choosing my sources and using, this is an opportunity to, get back to, having a relationship with myself. I took the dog swimming today and just, can't do anything else. So just using the time to take care of, like you said, you're human, taking care of your human.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's all I had to say. Is a lot of people that are anxious, the stimulation you get from turning on the TV and saying, oh my gosh, 3 more people died or 20 more people died. And, I found that that's helpful to just take some of that out of the equation.
And to that point about you can really do what makes sense to you. I think this is a place of dropping into yourself and really allowing yourself to listen to what makes sense to you. Doesn't need to make sense to anybody else, but you can drop in and do what makes sense to you.
That's really acceptance.